learning goal of this lesson is to analyse the representation of gender in a property of the clan, considering culture and values. Camille Paglia declared, "A woman simply is, but a man must become." Masculinity is risky and elusive. It is achieved by a revolt from women and is confirmed only by other men. This is an interesting quote. I don't agree that a woman simply is, as I believe social forces construct our ideas about what is feminine. However, Paglia's statement resonates with the portrayal of masculinity in a property of the clan. The play reveals the dysfunctional cultural norms that prescribe how men must behave in order to be accepted as men. Society instills in all of us an understanding of what is masculine and what is feminine. It does this through gender stereotypes. There is a social expectation that girls will be dependent, emotional, passive, sensitive, quiet, graceful, innocent, weak, flirtatious, nurturing, self-critical, soft, sexually submissive, and accepting. Men, on the other hand, are expected to be independent, non-emotional, aggressive, tough, competitive, experienced, strong, active, self-confident, hard, sexually aggressive, and rebellious. At the end of the play, Rico reveals how he identified Tracy as being flirtatious and sexually submissive, saying, "She always carried on like she was the greatest little slut in town." Tracy's rejection of Rico's sexual advances challenges his hypermasculinity. For Rico, women only exist to fulfill men's sexual needs. They're just spunk buckets. Therefore, Tracy's rejection triggers a fear of masculine inadequacy in Rico, and he responds with hatred. Just hatred. Blind hate. A majority of the male characters in a property of the clan share Rico's contempt for women. The male relationships in the play suggest that their mistreatment of women is a learned behaviour. Older males, such as Rico and Jared's father, model misogynism. Rico's sexist language conveys his view that women are merely sexual objects, a belief that results in Tracy's murder. Although Jared and Jade's father is never on stage, his influence is felt. Jade tells Jared that she overheard their father threatening their mother on the phone. Dad rang up, yelling, calling her all these names, said he was going to come around one night and... Jared's father and Rico are both modelling a dysfunctional version of masculinity, promoting labels, threats and violence as means of asserting their dominance over women. Nick Enright strongly believed that fear was the catalyst for men's mistreatment of women. He once commented, "The play appears to be about powerful men and women who are in their command. But in fact, the psychological truth is that most Australian men are afraid of women." He expanded on this idea in another interview when he said, "The fear of women is so paramount in this society. I think the most terrifying thing that I ever read, and I think it's probably true, is something Gore Vidal said, which is, if only women knew how much men hate them." I personally don't think men fear women. Although a woman may reject a man sexually, it is not female rejection that a man fears. He fears other males not viewing him as masculine and consequently rejecting him from the clan. From young ages, children are indoctrinated to believe that masculine traits are positive and feminine traits are negative. Emotional boys are told to man up or stop being a girl, and this use of language entrenches male prejudice against women and effeminate males. The male characters in a property of the clan share a common language that denigrates women and effeminate males. Girls are subjected to sexist labels. They're sluts, or snotty stuck-up bitches, bloody moles, horny bitches, conchas, swats, rich bitches, hell chicks, dogs, bush pigs, spunk buckets, and real little cock-teasing whores. The use of this sexist language identifies the boys as members of the clan. Glenn, who doesn't use these sexist labels and has a friendship with Rachel, doesn't fit within the established boundaries of masculinity. As such, he's also denigrated and labelled as sus, a sus dog, a poofter, a queer dog, a fag, a wuss, and gay. This misogynistic and homophobic language is used to establish the dominance of heterosexual males, and there is a stark difference in the language the boys use to describe each other, which is positive and inclusive. Jared, for example, describes Rico as a top bloke, a mad bastard, and mate. There is a real clan mentality amongst the male characters in the play. In A Property of the Clan, this male group mentality manifests itself in a number of ways. However, the most confronting example is the gang rape that occurs. Dr. Naftali Burrell, a forensic psychologist, believes that masculine identity is a significant cause of gang rape, which is generally committed by teenage boys. He asserts that teenage boys in a group can be the most dangerous human beings on the planet. Dr. Burrell believes that the boys fear not being perceived as being masculine, saying, "The men involved in gang rape may be more worried about their reputation with each other and their status as dominant males than the life of the woman they assault." In the play, Jared, who observes the rape, internally struggles with the social code that prevents him from dobbing on his mates. When he tells Rico, "Mate, I gotta let it out, gotta talk to someone, it sits in here like poison," Rico commands him to wipe it. "They're your mates. Forget about it." Because he follows Rico's instruction to not report the crime, Jared chooses to value his identity as a dominant male in the clan above his morality. A Property of the Clan is a condemnation of the male attempt to assert their own power through the subjugation of women. Throughout the play, men seek to dominate women, labelling and commanding them. Glenn's and Jared's assignments on Indigenous Australians and the Jews in Nazi Germany highlight the prejudice and discrimination that maintains social inequality for females in our own society. In linking these three examples of human rights abuse, Enright makes a powerful statement about the issue of men's treatment of women in Australia. The teacher explains the cause of the problem when he says, "Prejudice and discrimination are based on assumptions, the value systems of power. People ought to be A, B, and C. These people are X, Y, and Z, so we lock them up, or deny them basic rights, or even kill them." Tragically, the teacher's lecture foreshadows Tracy's rape and murder, and the subsequent blaming of the victim. The blame that is attributed to Tracy after her rape and murder is powerful evidence of the insidious strength and immorality of a patriarchal society. It is unconscionable that Tracy is in any way to blame for being raped and murdered. Yet she is. There is the voice that is heard saying, "My dad says she was asking for it. Said she always looked like trouble." Rico says, "It's just the way things happen. The way she came, with a bottle of bourbon and her little earrings bobbing and her tits poking out of her t-shirt. She was up for it. She was always horny, mate. A horny bitch. She was always a bloody mole. She was a slut." The old woman at the nursing home tells Diane, "Wasn't that kid asking for it? Going to a party like that?" Diane hears people saying Tracy was a real sleep around. Finally, Jared gets aggressive with Rachel and says, "Why did she have to be the way she was? People don't do things out of nowhere. Rico's life is ruined. 15 years locked away because she didn't know the limits, or because she was out there and said what she said or did what she did." Sadly, there are numerous examples in recent history of rape victims being held responsible or partially responsible for the rape, and for sympathy to be expressed for the male perpetrator rather than the female victim. Philip Rouse, who directed a 2013 production of A Property of the Clan, explained victim blaming when he said, "We have built a critical framework where men become the hapless victims of the women's indiscretions, her failure to fit into a conservative blueprint of what it means to be female, and thus he wouldn't have acted how he acted if she didn't act how she acted. We put yet another horrible act away in a box and the machine keeps ticking over. It's a culturally institutionalized bullying." In A Property of the Clan, all the female characters challenge the conservative blueprint of feminine stereotyping in some way. Although Rico tells Jade that girls can't surf, she wants to learn. Diane also seeks to be more financially independent, studying her HSC. In surfing and studying, Jade and Diane are challenging the limited stereotypes of what it means to be female. However, the character that truly challenges the entrenched sexism of their patriarchal society is Rachel. Rachel is the conscience of the play. She refuses to let her boyfriend, Jared, control her. Jared forbids her to spend time with Glenn or to investigate the story she wishes to write on Tracy. Rachel, however, is independent and autonomous and refuses to be intimidated. She also has the integrity and courage to reprimand Jared for his use of sexist and homophobic language, telling him it's really off after he calls Tracy a mole. Rachel's unpublished story about Tracy, which Diane reads, encourages all women to oppose sexism. She wrote, "But until we think it is me, stand up and say, what happened to her happened to all of us, then nothing's going to change." I believe Enright's key idea in A Property of the Clan is that the association of masculinity with power is destructive. Through his play, Enright held up a mirror to Australian society, revealing how men seek to subjugate women. Philip Rouse stated in an interview that when looking at this material as a straight white male, and especially while reflecting on your teenage years, realising how much you were in the thrall of this conservative blueprint can really take you by surprise. You want to believe you're a good person, but maybe that wasn't always the case. The process of shedding damaging notions of masculinity, particularly attitudes towards women, is a long one, and one that not every male goes through. And in working on this play, if it forces you to engage with attitudes you have shed and admit you understand them from the inside, that is what I mean by being honest as a director. I don't believe that these damaging notions of masculinity is limited to Australian society. The play's exploration of how men use language and violence to assert their power over women exposes a truth that seems to be relevant across all societies. And that's it. You've made it. To recap the main points of the lesson, I explored how Nick Enright represented gender in A Property of the Clan, focusing particularly on masculinity. I identified some of the gender traits that are stereotyped for males and females, recognising the character of Rico as hypermasculine. The male characters in A Property of the Clan are generally contemptuous of the female characters, and the play suggests this dysfunctional masculine behaviour is learned from older males. Although Enright believes that fear is the catalyst for male mistreatment of women, I believe the catalyst is men's fear of not being viewed as masculine. There is a real clan mentality amongst the male characters who share a common language that is sexist and homophobic. This language reflects the male's desire to control and dominate women and effeminate men. In some ways, all the female characters challenge the restrictive ideas of feminine stereotyping. I believe the key idea in A Property of the Clan is that the association of masculinity with power is destructive. A Property of the Clan represents a number of gender stereotypes and a culture of sexism. I'd like to suggest a few ways that you can challenge gender stereotypes and sexism in your own life to help everyone feel equal. Point it out. From magazines, television to film and the internet, the media is filled with negative gender stereotypes. Sometimes these stereotypes are hard to see. Talk with friends and family members about the stereotypes you see and help others recognise how sexism and gender stereotypes can hurt all of us. Walk the talk. Be a role model for your friends and family. Respect people regardless of their gender. Speak up. If someone is making sexist comments or jokes, challenge them. Give it a try. If you want to do something that is not normally associated with your gender, think about whether you'll be safe doing it. If you think you will, give it a try. People will learn from your experience. So as the orchestra music begins to play, the final thing for me to do is to thank you so much for watching.